Welcome, curious minds, to the Regenesis Health Podcast. Unconventional paths to wellness and root cause healing. Today, we're embarking on a really fascinating and I'd say often provocative exploration. We're looking into two foundational texts that they've sparked both fervent advocacy and some pretty heated debate in the realm of alternative health. I'm Meredith.
And I'm James. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm definitely ready to help unpack some truly compelling concepts from our sources today.
Great. Now, before we dive in, there's a crucial note we need to share. The information we're discussing today comes from The Amazing Liver and Gallbladder Flush by Andreas Moritz and The Cure for All Diseases by Hulda Clark. It's important for you to know this podcast is not affiliated with the authors of these books or the concepts mentioned within them, and we absolutely do not endorse the claims made in these books. We are legally required to advise you, our listeners, to please consult your doctors or a qualified healthcare professional before attempting any cleanse or making significant changes to your health regimen. What might work for one person may not be suitable or even safe for another.
That's absolutely right. Safety first.
So our mission today is really to explore the core concepts presented in these two books. We want to understand their unique perspectives on how our bodies truly get sick and, what paths to healing they propose. We'll delve into these, quite radical ideas of internal blockages and hidden invaders.
And we'll even share a powerful personal testimony later on that speaks directly to some of these often controversial claims.
Okay, let's start unpacking this with Andreas Moritz's perspective. He puts forward a very direct and honestly quite radical link between liver health and almost every type of disease imaginable. What's the central idea, the core tenet of his work, and how does it relate so strongly to the liver?
Well, the truly profound insight here, Meredith, is how Moritz challenges conventional wisdom. He argues that the liver directly controls the growth and the functioning of every single cell in the body.
Every cell. That's a huge claim.
It is. He suggests that nearly all forms of cellular malfunction, deficiency or even abnormal growth patterns, are primarily because of suboptimal liver performance. And here's a critical point he makes, one that's almost unsettling. Your liver can appear to function entirely normally. Your blood work can look fine, balanced values and all that.
Right.
Even after it has lost a significant portion, he claims up to 60% of its original efficiency.
60%.
Yeah, it's like think of your car's engine running on maybe 2 cylinders instead of 4.
Yeah.
Still moving, right?
Yeah.
So you might not realize how much power you've actually lost until it completely breaks down.
That makes sense.
That's kind of how Moritz describes the liver silently struggling, losing efficiency, long before any, dashboard warning lights come on in the form of standard tests.
So that naturally prompts the question then. If the liver is so vital, and it can be compromised without obvious signs or standard lab results flagging an issue, how do we truly know it's struggling underneath it all? And what does Moritz believe is the main culprit in this silent decline?
Right, that's the key question he addresses.
So if the liver can be this sort of silent culprit, operating way below its capacity without setting off conventional alarms, what does Moritz identify as the main issue, hindering its performance and, by extension, our overall health? What's the blockage?
Okay, so he focuses intensely on gallstones. But, and this is crucial, it's really important to understand his distinction here. He's not just talking about the gallstones most people are familiar with, the ones that form in the gallbladder itself and can cause that acute, sharp pain.
Right, the ones that might lead to surgery.
Exactly. Instead, he highlights the widespread accumulation of gallstones, predominantly within the liver's incredibly intricate network of bile ducts. He calls these intrahepatic stones.
Intrahepatic, so inside the liver itself.
Precisely.
Yeah.
He claims these internal stones drastically cut down bile secretion. From a healthy average, which he puts at about 1 quart, maybe a liter, per day, down to as little as 1 cup daily. That's a massive reduction.
Wow, yeah, that's huge. What does that do?
Well, if we look at the bigger picture, this severe reduction in bile flow profoundly disrupts the entire digestive process, especially the digestion and absorption of fats. Without enough bile, fats just aren't properly emulsified and absorbed. This can lead straight to nutrient deficiencies.
Makes sense.
And furthermore, this obstruction also prevents the liver from effectively performing its vital detoxification role.
Ah, right. The filtering job.
Exactly. Filtering out noxious substances, bacteria, eliminating parasites, processing chemical drug components. All of that gets hampered. So this leads to high levels of toxicity building up, both within the liver itself and then spreading throughout the body. Eventually, he argues, this manifests as various diseases, including severe liver conditions like cirrhosis, which he states is often preceded by extensive bile duct obstruction from these very gallstones. And he also argues something quite interesting about medications. He says the presence of these stones makes pharmaceutical drugs more dangerous because the liver struggles to detoxify their breakdown products.
So you could effectively overdose even on a normal dose.
That's his claim, yeah.
Yeah.
Leading to more potential side effects.
That paints a pretty vivid picture of a deeply compromised system. So, given that the liver can be silently struggling, like you said, what are some of the more subtle, maybe overlooked marks or physical signs Moritz describes? Signs that might indicate these hidden gallstones are present, even when standard blood tests look normal.
Right, this is where it gets quite detailed. Moritz provides a remarkably specific array of physical indicators that he believes directly reflect liver and gallbladder issues. He suggests these are visible clues the body offers, if we just knew how to read them.
Okay, like what?
First, he focuses heavily on the skin. He highlights various skin blemishes, discolorations, maybe changes like premature wrinkles, unusual dryness, or excessive oiliness. Specifically, he notes that oily skin and excessive perspiration, particularly on the forehead, along with a distinct sort of yellowish facial hue, are directly tied, in his view, to poor liver and bile function. He even suggests the hair loss, specifically in the central region of the head, is a sign of significant congestion, not just in the liver, but also affecting the heart, small intestines, pancreas, and even reproductive organs.
Wow, so hair loss could indicate a much bigger systemic issue.
According to Moritz, yes.
Huh?
It indicates broader congestion stemming from liver dysfunction. It's a fascinating idea, isn't it, that your hair could tell you so much about your internal organ health.
It really is. What else?
Next, he moves to the mouth, lips, and teeth. He discusses things like repeated mucus discharge dripping into the throat and mouth, often accompanied by a bitter taste. He links this to bile regurgitating into the stomach and irritating its lining.
Okay, that sounds unpleasant.
Definitely. He also points to frequent attempts to clear the throat or cough, bad breath, and frequent burping. He sees those as clear signs of undigested, fermenting, or even putrefying food stuck in the gastrointestinal tract, leading to toxic gas production. He notes crust formations of the corners of the mouth might indicate duodenal ulcers, again, potentially caused by that bile regurgitation. Mouth and tongue ulcers generally, he says, correspond to inflammation or ulceration in the related parts of the GI tract. And perhaps most strikingly, he links dark spots or patches appearing on the lips to significant obstructions in the liver, gallbladder, and the kidneys.
Lips reflecting kidney health, too. Interesting.
Yeah, he sees it all as interconnected. Finally, Moritz also looks at the feet.
The feet? Okay, how so?
He notes that a yellow color of the feet can be an indicator of numerous gallstones accumulating within the liver and gallbladder. A green coloration, on the other hand, suggests severely disrupted spleen and lymph functions, potentially even leading to the formation of cysts or tumors.
Green feet. That's specific.
It is. And for those with persistent foot discomfort, he highlights hardness or calluses, specifically on the tip or under the fourth toe, as a sign of stagnant gallbladder function and a long history of stone formation in the biliary system.
Huh. So that little callus could mean something much deeper.
That's his perspective. This whole array of signs goes way beyond what conventional medicine typically associates directly with liver issues. It really encourages a holistic observation of the body's subtle signals.
That's a truly comprehensive, almost overwhelming list of connections. It really reframes how you might think about the origins of various common complaints and even serious diseases. Moritz clearly sees this liver congestion impacting a vast array of health problems across the body, far beyond just digestive issues. Can you elaborate a bit more on how he sees this liver congestion affecting other seemingly unrelated systems?
Yeah, it's an important question, isn't it? How does one organ, the liver, supposedly influence so many seemingly disconnected systems? Moritz outlines these profound and really far-reaching connections, suggesting the liver is truly the body's central hub, maybe more than we typically think.
Okay, like which systems?
He starts with the circulatory system. He argues that widespread conditions like coronary heart disease and high cholesterol often stem directly from these gallstones impacting the bile ducts. When these ducts are blocked, the bad cholesterol, as he puts it, can't properly leave the liver. Instead, it gets trapped in the circulatory system.
Oh.
And that leads to arterial hardening and plaque formation. He makes a really strong claim about cholesterol-lowering drugs, too.
Oh, what's that?
He claims they actually exacerbate the problem. They coerce the liver, force it to produce even more cholesterol, which then just crystallizes into more stones instead of being properly used or excreted.
So counterproductive in his view.
Exactly. Furthermore, he connects liver issues to widespread lymph congestion. Now, given that about 80% of the lymphatic system, which is crucial for waste removal and immunity, is tied to the intestines,
Right.
a congested liver creates a significant bottleneck. It impairs the body's ability to remove cellular waste, microbes, even potentially malignant cells. This lymphatic stagnation, he suggests, is a precursor to chronic illness and can ultimately lead to serious conditions like Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a cancer of the lymphatic system.
Wow. So liver, lymph, circulation, all tied together. What else?
Moving to the urinary system, he explains that when bile ducts are blocked, the kidneys struggle immensely. They have to filter blood that's thickened by excessive proteins that the liver, because it's impaired, can't properly break down. This leads to a buildup of metabolic waste. Uric acid crystals, for example, aren't effectively eliminated by the kidneys and can settle in joints, causing gout and rheumatism.
Even if blood tests for uric acid are normal.
That's what he implies, yes. He even links high blood pressure to the hardening of blood vessels as the kidneys become increasingly congested and less efficient, basically overworked from dealing with the liver's backlog.
Okay. And the nervous system.
Regarding the nervous system and brain, a dysfunctional liver, by interfering with proper digestion and nutrient assimilation, can lead to improperly formed blood, which then directly affects the health and function of the nervous system. Even more concerning, he talks about nitrogenous bacterial waste absorbed from the colon. Normally, a healthy liver would detoxify this.
Right.
But if the liver is congested, this waste can actually reach the brain, causing damage and manifesting as conditions like apathy, disorientation, maybe even delirium. He also suggests the liver's inability to detoxify properly can make the blood-brain barrier more permeable, allowing more harmful substances into the brain.
That's a sobering thought. That mental clarity could be so tied to liver function.
It really is. Then there's bone health. Moritz states that bile deficiency, which is a direct result of these gallstones blocking flow, severely impairs calcium absorption from the small intestines.
So even if you take calcium supplements,
It doesn't matter, according to him. It leads to depleted bone density and osteoporosis, regardless of intake. He also says the body, trying to neutralize harmful acids that build up because the liver isn't working right, actually draws calcium from the bones, making the density loss even worse.
goodness. What about reproduction?
The reproductive system is impacted too, according to Moritz. He explains that congestion in the thoracic duct, that's a major lymphatic vessel, draining many digestive organs, including the liver, impacts lymph drainage from the reproductive organs. This contributes, he believes, to a variety of reproductive disorders, anything from fertility issues to chronic pelvic pain.
Okay. And finally, the skin again.
Yes, finally, he circles back to skin health. He claims that almost all skin issues have their root in an imbalanced liver condition. Toxins and poor nutrient supply, which result from the gallstones and the circulatory issues they cause, congest the lymphatic system in the skin. This leads to constant irritation, inflammation, and impaired cell turnover.
So acne, eczema, all potentially liver-related in his view.
Pretty much, what appears to be just a localized skin problem is often, in his framework, a direct manifestation of deep-seated liver congestion. It's a truly inside-out perspective on skincare.
That's an incredibly comprehensive, almost overwhelming web of connections. It really does suggest the liver is a master organ in his model. So if these gallstones are potentially at the heart of so many problems, what lifestyle and dietary choices does Moritz identify as the prime culprits? What forms these stones in the first place?
Right, he points to several common habits and dietary choices that he believes are significant contributors, and many of them are, well, deeply embedded in modern lifestyles.
Okay, lay them on us.
First, eating habits. He heavily criticizes eating between meals, particularly, as he puts it, before the previous meal has been digested. He aligns with older health sciences, like Ayurveda here, seeing this as a major cause of illness because it upsets the body's finely tuned biological rhythms, leads to digestive chaos, basically.
So constant grazing is bad.
Very bad, in his view. Irregular eating also hinders proper bile and digestive enzyme production. He emphasizes the importance of the midday meal. That's when bile production naturally peaks, apparently, and it's crucial for fully emptying the gallbladder.
Ah.
If lunch is consistently just light snacks, the gallbladder can't fully release its contents. You get residual bile left behind, which can thicken and form stones over time. A simple thing, but often overlooked.
Okay. What about specific foods?
Then there are specific dietary choices. Surprisingly, maybe, he views low-fat diets as detrimental.
Really? Low fat is usually promoted as healthy.
Not by Moritz, not for liver health. His reasoning is that low-fat diets prevent the gallbladder from fully emptying, which leads to bile stagnation and stone formation. He actually advocates for increasing fat intake back to normal levels after the liver is cleansed to promote proper bile flow.
Interesting. What else?
Excessive protein consumption, particularly animal protein, is another major concern for him. He claims it thickens blood vessel membranes and, again, coerces the liver to produce abnormally high cholesterol, which then crystallizes into stones.
So he's not a fan of high-protein diets?
Definitely not animal protein. He explicitly advises cutting out meat, pork, eggs, and cheese, suggesting a gradual transition to a balanced vegetarian or even vegan diet as optimal for liver health.
Okay.
Alcohol and coffee are problematic because they have a dehydrating effect on bile and blood, promoting fat deposits in the liver. Refined sugar, especially the kind in carbonated drinks and many fruit juices, also leads to fat deposits and is linked to gallstone accumulation, even in children, he said.
Oh, even in kids.
Yeah. And artificial sweeteners like aspartame or saccharin. He claims they severely upset the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas, interfering with their intricate metabolic processes.
So ditch the diet soda.
According to Moritz, absolutely. Dehydration and refined salt are also highlighted.
How so?
Insufficient water intake, he suggests, less than 6 to 8 glasses daily, directly affects bile fluidity. It makes it thicker, more prone to stone formation, like trying to push thick mud through a pipe, right?
Yeah, good analogy.
And refined table salt, the white stuff, stripped of its essential minerals, often containing chemicals like desiccants and bleaches, he links it to water retention, kidney issues, high blood pressure. Very different from natural sea salt, which he champions for its 92 essential minerals vital for cellular function.
So the type of salt matters.
Hugely, in his view. He argues refined salt disrupts the body's most basic chemical processes, throws off ion control, essentially messing up cellular communication.
Okay. Any other causes?
Finally, he lists several miscellaneous causes. Chronic stress is a big one. It triggers the continuous secretion of stress hormones, including cholesterol, which adds to the liver's burden and contributes to stone formation.
Stress. Makes sense.
Excessive exercise that overtaxes the body is also mentioned. Overeating leading to weight gain naturally. And even watching too much television.
Watching TV? How?
It's a really interesting claim he makes. He suggests television watching, particularly in children, can dramatically increase cholesterol production by up to 300% within hours, apparently altering bile composition and causing gallstones.
That's wild.
It is. And disrupting natural sleep-wake cycles also upsets hormonal balance and metabolism, impacting things like growth hormone production and the body's ability to cleanse and repair itself during deep sleep. So that contributes to liver stress and disease susceptibility too.
It seems like nearly every aspect of modern life could potentially play a role in this silent liver issue, based on his perspective.
That's certainly the picture he paints.
So, with all these potential problems and contributing factors leading to liver congestion, what is the core process of Moritz's liver cleanse itself? What does he expect people to actually do, and what does he expect them to see during and after it?
Right, the cleanse itself. It's a multi-step process, and it's designed pretty meticulously to be done over a specific period, usually like a weekend, when someone can truly rest and focus on it.
Okay, makes sense.
Preparation is crucial and actually begins days before the main event. It involves preparing the colon beforehand.
Why the colon first?
To prevent discomfort and ensure the swift elimination of the stones once they're released from the liver and gallbladder. He doesn't want them getting stuck further down. He advises either colonic irrigation or using something called a Kalima board to ensure the bowel is clear. Additionally, it's vital to avoid any unnecessary medications, vitamins, or supplements during the cleanse period itself. These could give the liver extra work and interfere with its primary cleansing efforts. He also recommends consuming a no-fat breakfast and lunch on the actual day of the cleanse. The idea is to allow bile pressure to build up in the liver, which he believes helps push out more stones more effectively when the time comes.
Got it. So what happens on the cleanse day itself?
The actual cleanse typically takes place over a single day and evening. In the late afternoon, participants began by consuming specific doses of Epsom salts. That's magnesium sulfate mixed with filtered water.
Epsom salts, like for soaking sore muscles.
Very same. The magnesium in Epsom salts is believed to be key here. It acts as a strong dilator, widening the bile ducts to make it easier for stones to pass without pain. Think of it like widening a pipe to allow blockages through. It also helps clear out any waste in the digestive tract that might obstruct the release of stones. Then, a few hours later, usually right before bedtime, the famous mixture is consumed. fresh grapefruit juice mixed with olive oil.
The olive oil and grapefruit juice.
Right. The olive oil is thought to trigger a strong expulsion of bile, causing the gallbladder to contract forcefully. Immediately after drinking this oil mixture, Moritz stresses it's essential to lie perfectly still for at least 20 minutes.
Perfectly still.
Yes. Ideally on the back, with the head slightly propped up, or maybe on the right side, with knees pulled towards the head. This stillness is thought to be crucial for aiding the release of the gallstones. Moritz claims that because the magnesium keeps the bile ducts wide open and the bile itself provides lubrication, the passage of stones should be pain-free, unlike a conventional gallbladder attack, which is excruciating.
That's a key point.
Absolutely. Participants are even encouraged to sort of put their attention on their liver during this time. Some people report actually feeling the stones traveling, like little marbles moving through the ducts.
Wow. And what about the expected results? What actually comes out?
This is where it gets really descriptive. Participants report expelling various types of stones into the toilet the following morning, usually after more Epsom salt doses. These stones are described as ranging widely in color green, black, red, white, or tan. They're often said to have a waxy consistency, sometimes feeling like soft rubber.
Waxy, okay.
Some even reportedly contain embedded, unidentified objects, which Moritz speculates could be things like fluke remains, connecting potentially to Hulda Clark's work later. Beyond the distinct stones, people often notice a layer of white or tan-colored chaff or foam floating on the water. Moritz identifies this as millions of tiny, sharp-edged cholesterol crystals being flushed out.
So stones and crystal chaff.
Exactly. And Moritz emphasizes something critical, the need for multiple cleanses. He suggests spacing them every 2 to 4 weeks, or maybe monthly.
Why multiple?
Because he believes the liver can harbor thousands of these stones, accumulated over years. He strongly warns that partial cleansing, doing just 1 or 2 and stopping before all the stones are expelled, can actually lead to greater discomfort and health issues than not cleansing at all.
How so?
Because stones released from deep within the liver might get stuck further down the bile ducts if the cleansing isn't completed, potentially causing new blockages. So commitment is key in his model.
Okay. That's a lot to take in about Moritz's perspective.
It really is. And it sets the stage nicely for our next author.
Right. Now, let's pivot to Hulda R. Clark. Her work, The Cure for All Diseases, takes a somewhat different, yet you could say complementary, approach to root cause healing. While Moritz focuses heavily on those liver blockages, Clark delves into what she believes are the 2 universal culprits behind essentially all illness. What's her central hypothesis regarding disease?
Yeah, looking at the larger context, Clark's core philosophy is remarkably concise. And in its simplicity, it's quite revolutionary, really. She states, quite plainly, that all human illness, regardless of its name, its complexity, or how unique it seems, stems from just 2 fundamental problems.
Only 2?
Only 2. Parasites and pollutants.
Parasites and pollutants, that's it.
That's her core assertion. She argues that our bodies don't just randomly generate symptoms. Rather, they create various manifestations, things like stones, abnormal secretions, swellings, inflammations, even tumors, as a desperate yet intelligent attempt to rid themselves of these persistent invaders and the toxic substances that interfere with normal bodily function.
So the symptoms aren't the disease, they're the body's response to these 2 things.
Exactly. The symptoms are the body's communication, a warning sign that these underlying issues are present. This immediately begs the question, though. If the root cause is supposedly so singular, how does she propose we identify and then systematically eliminate these 2 ubiquitous problems?
Oh.
Especially when they might be unseen or completely unacknowledged by conventional medicine.
Right. And Clark is famous, or perhaps infamous, depending on your view, for developing unique tools for diagnosis and treatment that are definitely outside the mainstream. Can you describe her syncrometer and this concept of zapping?
Indeed. Clark developed the syncrometer, which she describes as a radioelectronic device. You could maybe imagine like a hypersensitive metal detector, but instead of metal, it's tuned to the unique energetic signature, the frequency of, well, pretty much anything. A virus, a parasite, a specific chemical pollutant.
Okay, how does it work?
She claims this device can detect the precise presence or absence of any substance within the body by matching these resonant frequencies. So if you put a sample of, say, a specific parasite on one plate of the device and then test a person's saliva or tissue sample on another, if that same parasite frequency is detected within the person, the device emits an audible squeal or signal.
Indicating its presence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Clark believed this was a direct, instantaneous diagnostic tool far more accurate and versatile than the best existing conventional testing methods at the time. Although she does note that back then, it primarily gave positive or negative results, not necessarily quantifiable amounts.
Okay, and the treatment, the zapping.
Right. Her primary treatment method is zapping. This involves using a handheld, battery-operated frequency generator. It delivers a small electrical current through handheld electrodes.
To do what?
To, as she puts it, selectively electrocute pathogens. She claims that this device, regardless of its specific frequency setting within a reasonable range, she initially used specific frequencies, but later found a broad positive offset square wave was effective kills a wide array of invaders.
Like what kind of invaders?
Flukes, roundworms, mites, bacteria, viruses, fungi, pretty much the whole gamut, all at once, in short, 7-minute sessions, even at low voltages, like 5 volts from a couple of batteries.
7 minutes kills all that.
That's her claim. However, she notes a crucial limitation. The zapper's current doesn't penetrate deeply into bowel contents or the interior of large organs very well.
Ah, okay.
Therefore, she recommends repeated daily zapping, often 3 7-minute sessions with breaks in between, sometimes for several weeks. This is to kill pathogens as they emerge from hiding spots or move into areas more accessible by the current. She often combines zapping with herbal parasite programs for a more comprehensive, full-body approach.
It's certainly a simple technology with some very bold claims attached.
Absolutely.
And this particular claim often sparks the most discussion, I think. Clark makes a strong and frankly somewhat alarming assertion about one specific parasite and its unexpected link to some of our most devastating modern illnesses. Can you explain her concept of fluke disease?
Yes. This really gets to the heart of her pollution-parasite connection theory. And it naturally prompts the question about our modern disease landscape and how seemingly disparate illnesses might be connected at a fundamental level we don't normally consider. Clark identifies the human intestinal fluke, specifically Phachyolopsis busci, as the worst parasite of all.
Worse than others. Why?
Because she claims to have found it using her synchrometer in every case of cancer, HIV infection, Alzheimer's disease, Crohn's disease, endometriosis, and other severe conditions she investigated.
Every case. That's a very strong statement.
Extremely strong. But her key insight isn't just the presence of the fluke itself, is that the presence of specific industrial solvents in the body enables these fluke stages to develop and mature in unusual, inappropriate locations far beyond their normal intestinal habitat.
Solvents? Like chemicals.
Exactly. Industrial chemicals we're exposed to. Normally, intestinal flukes have a complex life cycle, often involving a snail as a secondary host where certain stages develop before they can reinfect humans.
Right.
But Clark's radical claim is that when specific industrial solvents are present in our bodies, these flukes get, let's say, confused or enabled. They skip the snail stage entirely and instead use a human organ as their secondary host.
A human organ instead of a snail.
That's the core of her theory. For example, she states that propyl alcohol, a common industrial solvent you might find in certain cleaners or rubbing alcohol, is linked to the intestinal fluke causing cancer. She claims when propyl alcohol is present, the fluke's life cycle uses another human organ as its secondary host, and that organ then becomes cancerous.
Wow.
Similarly, benzene, a known carcinogen, often found in fuels, industrial emissions, even some household products, she links directly to HIV. She claims the intestinal fluke uses the thymus gland as its secondary host in the presence of benzene, setting the stage for AIDS. Wood alcohol, methanol, which she says is a common contaminant in diet sodas, commercial beverages, artificial sweeteners, invites pancreatic flukes to use the pancreas as their secondary host. This leads, in her view, to pancreatic dysfunction, which she identifies as the root cause of diabetes.
So diabetes linked to wood alcohol and pancreatic flukes.
According to Clark, yes. And as solvents like xylene or toluene found in things like paints, glues, certain fuels are present, she typically sees any of 4 different fluke species using the brain as a secondary host, potentially leading to various neurological issues.
Good grief.
She also links methyl ethyl ketone, MEK, or methyl butyl ketone, MBK, other common industrial solvents, to the uterus becoming a secondary host, leading to conditions like endometriosis.
So this whole phenomenon...
It's a phenomena, this new kind of parasitism, where pollution essentially enables parasites to thrive in organs they wouldn't normally inhabit, is what she collectively refers to as fluke disease.
It completely flips the script on understanding these illnesses.
It really does. It suggests they aren't primarily genetic or simple immune system failures, but rather an issue of environmental toxicity creating a hospitable internal environment for parasitic proliferation in the wrong places.
That's quite a theory, suggesting our modern chemical environment is literally altering parasitic behavior inside us. Beyond these specific enabling solvents, what other categories of pollutants does Clark highlight as significant contributors to illness? And where does she say we commonly encounter them, maybe in places we wouldn't even think to look?
Right. Her work details an extensive and often genuinely surprising list of invasive pollutants that she claims permeates our environment and consequently our bodies. What Clark fundamentally reveals, or claims to reveal, is that we're not just exposed to these toxins occasionally. They're woven into the very fabric of our daily lives, often in places we'd least expect, potentially turning our homes into, well, silent battlegrounds for our health.
Okay, like what kind of pollutants?
She starts with physical toxins. These are microscopic particles that she believes physically damage tissues by cutting or irritating them. This includes microscopic glass particles from fiberglass insulation. She claims these can fill our homes if the insulation isn't perfectly sealed, getting into the air, cutting through tissues like tiny knives, causing irritation.
Fiberglass in the air.
That's her concern. She also identifies asbestos as a common physical toxin, not just from old building materials, which we know about, but primarily from a really unexpected source: clothes, dryer belts.
Dryer belts.
Seriously. She claims that as the dryer belt heats up during use, it releases asbestos particles. These particles are then forced into the air through the dryer seams and the exhaust hose, becoming airborne in our homes. I have to admit, the idea that my clothes dryer could be filling my house with asbestos is genuinely shocking.
Yeah, that's definitely not something you hear every day. What about chemical toxins?
Next, she delves into chemical toxins, and this category is incredibly broad. She points to refrigerants like chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, or Freon. She claims they are found in all cancer sufferers she tested and are concentrated in the cancerous organ itself, making leaking refrigerators, in her view, a top cancer hazard.
Wow.
Arsenic is noted, often coming from household pesticides. Formaldehyde, found in things like new foam furniture or even the sizing chemicals used on new clothing. She advises washing all new clothes before wearing them.
Okay.
She also highlights numerous heavy metals: lead, copper, and cadmium, often sourced from old water pipes, especially copper pipes, joined with lead solder, or galvanized pipes leaching cadmium. Nickel, which can come from soil, but also jewelry or even dental work. Cobalt, linked historically to blue products and even beer at one point. Aluminum, from things like table salt, baking powder cans, cookware. And thallium, which she strongly links to mercury amalgam fillings. She claims thallium is found in all wheelchair patients she tested and links it to conditions like paraplegia.
So metals from plumbing, fillings, cookware, everyday items.
Pretty much. She even notes chlorine in tap water can potentially trigger manic episodes in susceptible individuals.
Chlorine. Huh. Okay. What about food?
Food pollutants are a massive focus for Clark, with a particular emphasis on mold toxins or mycotoxins. She identifies several problematic molds and their associated toxins. Aflatoxin, found commonly in bread, nuts, especially peanuts, fruit, beer, vinegar, syrups. She links this specifically to inhibiting the liver's ability to detoxify propyl alcohol, tying back to her cancer theory. Ergot, found in cereals, whole grain breads, wines, honey. She links this to strange feelings and behavior. Zearalenone, which she consistently finds in popcorn, corn chips, and brown rice. She claims this specifically inhibits the detoxification of benzene, linking it directly to her theory on HIV/AIDS susceptibility.
Popcorn and brown rice. Those are often seen as healthy.
Not according to Clark, due to this specific mold toxin risk. Cytocalicin B, mostly found in pasta, which she claims stops liver cells from regenerating. Kojic acid, found in potatoes, especially the skins, and coffee. She suggests this is responsible for wood alcohol buildup in the body and subsequent pancreas damage leading to diabetes. T2 toxin, present on dried peas and beans, which she links to high blood pressure and kidney disease.
That's a lot of common foods implicated.
It is. Beyond molds, she warns against benzopyrenes, which are carcinogens formed from grilling foods that includes toast, smoked meats, hot dogs. And she strongly warns against the ubiquitous presence of artificial sweeteners due to their wood alcohol content. She also points out that most commercial beverages, other than milk, are often polluted with various solvents picked up during bottling processes.
So basically, she sees potential toxins everywhere in the modern food supply and environment.
That's the essence of it. Clark's exhaustive list emphasizes that we are constantly exposed to these substances through our diet, personal care products, and living environment, creating what she sees as a continuous toxic burden that undermines health and enables parasitic infections. It certainly makes you look at your pantry, your bathroom cabinet, and even your laundry room a little differently.
No kidding. Clark clearly covers a very wide range of diseases, attributing them to these specific combinations of parasites and pollutants. Could you outline her approach to some common conditions, focusing on the root causes she identifies and her proposed solutions? This really is where her philosophy translates into direct action, isn't it?
Absolutely. To have a truly clean body, as she puts it, and address a wide array of conditions, Clark insists on systematically addressing these specific factors she has identified as root causes. Her approach is comprehensive, targeting both the invaders, the parasites and bacteria, and their enablers, the pollutants and toxins.
Okay, maybe start with something like arthritis.
Right, for rheumatoid arthritis, RA, she attributes the joint pain and inflammation not merely to bacteria, which is sometimes implicated conventionally, but primarily to wormlets.
Wormlets.
Yes, microscopic larval stages of common roundworms, things like ascaris, hookworms, strongyloids, and trichinella. She claims, using her synchrometer, to find these living directly in the joints of RA sufferers.
In the joints themselves.
That's her assertion. She suggests that heavy metals like mercury, thallium, cadmium, and lead, along with various solvents that get into the body, lower the immune system's effectiveness in the joints, allowing these wormlets to reside and thrive there, causing chronic inflammation and pain.
So what's your solution for RA then?
It involves a multi-pronged attack, a comprehensive herbal parasite program to kill the adult worms throughout the body, daily zapping to kill the wormlet stages in the joints as well as associated bacteria, kidney and liver cleanses to remove the accumulated toxins and metabolic waste, including potentially gallstones, and a strict diet cleanup. Interestingly, this diet cleanup includes reducing phosphates, which are high in meats and sodas, and surprisingly, increasing consumption of sterilized milk and fish as calcium sources. Her rationale is this helps prevent the body from pulling calcium out of bones to neutralize the excess phosphates, which can worsen joint issues.
Sterilized milk. Okay. What about something like MS, multiple sclerosis?
Multiple sclerosis, MS, is a specific instance where her findings really intersect with her core theories on parasites and pollutants in a highly detailed way. She claims that all MS cases she investigated involved Shigella bacteria lodged in the brain and spinal cord. She often links this Shigella exposure to unsterilized dairy products.
Shigella in the brain.
Yes. Additionally, she claims she always finds Ascaris larvae, those roundworm larvae, again in the brain of MS patients. And crucially, specific solvents like wood alcohol, ethanol, often traced back to diet sodas and other commercial beverages are found, along with various heavy metals like bismuth, palladium, copper, samarium, and tellurium, which she frequently links to alloys used in dental work.
So bacteria, parasites, solvents, and metals all converging in the brain for MS.
That's her model. Her protocol for MS is consequently very aggressive and multifaceted. It includes killing parasites and bacteria using both zapping and herbal programs, completely eliminating all sources of solvents from the diet and the home environment. A thorough dental cleanup is paramount, removing all metal fillings, crowns, potentially root canals, and addressing cavitations.
What are cavitations again?
She defines them as chronic bone infections or holes left in the jawbone, usually from incompletely extracted teeth that become breeding grounds for bacteria and toxins. And finally, extensive environmental detoxification to remove things like fiberglass, asbestos, formaldehyde, and other airborne toxins from the living space.
That's a massive undertaking.
It is. She believed MS required attacking all these fronts simultaneously.
What about something more common like high blood pressure?
For high blood pressure, she links it directly to the heavy metal cadmium, often from water pipes, especially galvanized pipes or copper pipes with cadmium-containing solder, and other pollutants, alongside congested kidneys that can't filter effectively. She actually claims a 100% cure rate in the cases she saw by eliminating the source of cadmium and other pollutants, followed by diligent kidney cleansing protocols. Caffeine is also strictly forbidden.
So find the cadmium source, cleanse the kidney.
That's the core of her approach, yes. Identify and eliminate the toxins, support the kidney's filtering ability, and she believed blood pressure would normalize naturally, allowing medication reduction.
Okay. And you mentioned brain issues earlier with MS. Does she discuss other mental or brain problems?
Yes, beyond MS, Clark discusses several other mental and brain issues. She attributes seizures, quite specifically, exclusively, to tiny Ascaris larvae residing in the brain.
Seizures from worm larvae.
That's her claim. Mental deterioration in the elderly, as well as strokes and purpura, those purple blotches sometimes seen on the skin of older people, she links to food molds, which she claims can cause tiny brain hemorrhages, along with various other toxins accumulating over time. She even cites chlorine in tap water as a potential trigger for manic episodes in susceptible individuals. And she consistently emphasizes that the liver's detoxification capability is absolutely crucial for brain health, especially as we age, because it's the main defense preventing harmful substances from reaching the brain in the first place.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Given all these hidden connections she proposes, how much of what we often experience as just normal aging could potentially be related to these underlying blockages or toxic burdens?
That's exactly the kind of question her work provokes.
Does she touch on other common conditions?
She does. She briefly delves into other conditions as well. For heart disease, she points fingers at Staphylococcus aureus bacteria, often originating from hidden dental infections, the heartworm parasite, Dirofilaria, and another parasite called Loa Loa, which she suggests often comes from pets.
Heartworm in humans.
She claims it happens and can affect the heart.
Yeah.
Breast lumps, she views not necessarily as cancer initially, but as a localized collection of toxins, heavy metals, radon. Asbestos often linked, she says, to high platelet counts caused by underlying parasitic infections. Prostate issues are attributed primarily to nickel accumulation, often from dental work or environment, and associated bacteria. Urinary tract infections, UTIs, she links to crystals forming in the urinary tract, plus bacteria and parasites, often exacerbated by unsterile dairy consumption. Insomnia, she suggests, is almost always associated with high levels of parasites and bacteria in the body, leading to the buildup of ammonia waste products, which are nerve irritants and disrupt sleep.
Ammonia from parasites causing insomnia.
That's her theory. And yeast infections, like Candida albicans, are addressed by essentially starving them, depriving them of moisture, iron, which they need to thrive, and sugar, and strengthening the skin's natural immunity through various means, like using borax instead of potentially irritating commercial soaps.
Across all these conditions, it seems the theme is incredibly consistent.
Absolutely. Identify the specific parasites and pollutants involved in that condition, and then systematically eliminate them from the body and the environment to allow the body's natural healing mechanisms to take over.
So given this comprehensive approach, identifying and eliminating parasites and pollutants, what does this all mean for someone wanting to actually apply Clark's principles in a practical way? What are the key steps she recommends for detoxification and healing in daily life? Sounds like a major lifestyle overall.
It definitely is. Clark outlines 4 meticulous and deeply interconnected cleanup areas that she considers absolutely foundational for anyone seeking to achieve true wellness and eliminate what she sees as the root causes of disease. It's a very holistic and, frankly, quite rigorous approach to health. It demands significant changes.
Okay, what's the first area?
The first, and she emphasizes this as paramount, is dental cleanup. She states this is crucial because the mouth, in her view, is a constant source of poisoning for the rest of the body. She advocates for removing all metal from the mouth. That means amalgam fillings, the silver ones containing mercury, metal crowns, potentially even root canals, which she believed harbor bacteria and toxins.
All metal out.
All of it.
Yeah.
She asserts these continually leach toxic heavy metals like mercury, thallium, nickel, palladium, etc., directly into the body, where they then accumulate in various organs and disrupt function. She also insists on thoroughly cleaning those cavitations. We mentioned the hidden chronic bone infections in the jawbone, often left after tooth extractions, that she believed become major reservoirs of infection and toxicity. She even warns against many modern dental plastics, claiming they often contain metals or other toxins, and advises using only specific, tested, metal-free plastic alternatives for any dental work. She genuinely believed many systemic conditions like heart attacks, arthritis, chronic pain could stem directly from these hidden dental infections and metal toxicities that are almost always overlooked by conventional medicine.
That's a huge emphasis on dental health. What's next?
The second area is diet cleanup. This involves strict avoidance of numerous common items that she identifies as polluted or problematic. She emphasizes avoiding processed foods in general, claiming they're often chemically laden. A significant focus, as we touched on, is on moldy foods. She explicitly warns against popcorn, corn chips, brown rice, pasta, and many commercial breads due to specific mycotoxins like zearalenone and cytocalicin B, which she linked to serious conditions.
So a lot of grains and carbs are potentially risky in her view.
Specifically those prone to certain molds, yes. Commercial beverages, other than boiled milk, are also generally out, due to potential solvent pollution from bottling processes. Unsterilized dairy products are a major concern because she believed they often harbor harmful bacteria like Salmonella and Shigella. She insisted all milk must be boiled for at least 10 seconds before consumption, and things like cheese and yogurt made from unboiled milk should be avoided entirely.
Really, milk. Yogurt.
She heavily promotes homemade alternatives for things like juices, sodas, and general cooking, encourages using natural, unrefined salt, and advocates for using only non-metal cookware, glass, enamel, ceramic to prevent further chemical and metal contamination leaching into food during preparation.
So diet is strict. What's the third cleanup?
Third, she addresses body product cleanup. This extends the detoxification principle to everything you put on your body, not just in it. She advises against using most commercial soaps, detergents, cosmetics, toothpaste, deodorants, and mouthwash. Why? Because she claims they often contain toxic metals like aluminum and antiperspirants, tin or fluoride in toothpaste, and various chemicals that can be absorbed through the skin or mucous membranes.
So read the labels on everything.
Meticulously. For instance, she flags many commercial toothpastes for containing things like tin, fluoride, strontium, even benzene contamination sometimes. She provides recipes for homemade substitutes using simple ingredients like borax for soap and laundry, food-grade zinc oxide for skin applications, pure grain alcohol for sanitizing. She also recommends oil swishing or oil pulling with sunflower or sesame oil as a traditional method to potentially pull toxins out of the blood via the salivary glands, toxins the liver might not have been able to remove effectively.
Okay. Dental, diet, body products. What's the fourth?
Finally, there's environmental cleanup. This involves a meticulous scrutiny of one's living space, the air you breathe, the water you drink. She recommends sealing off any exposed fiberglass insulation in homes, as she believes it releases those microscopic glass particles into the air. Replacing old closed dryer belts is crucial, again, due to the potential asbestos particle release she identified.
Right, the dryer belt thing.
All household chemicals, pesticides, mothballs, paint thinners, carpet cleaners, air fresheners, and known formaldehyde sources, like new foam furniture or unwashed new clothing, must be removed entirely from the home environment. Create a chemical-free sanctuary, essentially.
Makes sense from her perspective.
Air quality improvement via simple carbon filters is suggested, and avoiding all scented products, perfumes, air fresheners, scented candles is emphasized. Water filtering with simple carbon filters is recommended for drinking water, but she specifically warns against using hot water from electric water heaters due to potential tungsten contamination from the heating element. She also warned against purchased bottled water due to likely solvent contamination from bottling machinery.
So even water needs careful consideration.
Absolutely. The overarching principle is to eliminate any source of parasites, like ensuring pets are treated, food is handled safely, or pollutants that the body is exposed to from its immediate environment. The goal is to create a truly clean living space to minimize the toxic burden and allow the body to focus on healing.
It really is a complete lifestyle overhaul she proposes.
Without a doubt, it requires immense dedication and vigilance.
It's clear that both Moritz and Clark, despite their, differences in focus, Moritz zeroing in on the liver gallstones and bile flow, Clark on the parasites and pollutants, they really share a fundamental belief. A belief in the body's innate ability to heal itself. If the blockages are removed and these toxic burdens are significantly reduced.
Exactly.
They both champion this kind of radical self-health approach, putting the power and the responsibility back into the individual's hands. It's fascinating how their independent paths seem to converge on this core principle of removing interference.
Indeed, their philosophies absolutely converge on that idea that the body is inherently self-healing, provided we remove the obstacles to that healing process. And this brings us neatly to one of the most frequently debated aspects when discussing these liver flushes, particularly Moritz's protocol.
Yeah.
Those infamous green globules people report expelling.
Ah, yes, the soapstone debate.
Precisely. Critics argue these are simply olive oil soapstones. The theory is that the large dose of olive oil, when it combines with the digestive juices like bile or pancreatic enzymes, undergoes a process much like making soap. It's called saponification. This forms soft, waxy, often green balls. And admittedly, they certainly can resemble soap.
Okay, so that's the skeptical view.
That's the main counter-argument. But personal accounts, and there are many, present a different view, causing some people to seriously question that explanation. If these were only saponified oil, you might expect a more uniform, maybe paste-like output, right? Not distinct, often irregularly shaped stones ranging in size from tiny little peas to large marbles, or sometimes even bigger, with varying colors and consistencies.
That's a fair point. The variability is interesting.
It is. And this is where a profound personal experience, a testimony from someone named Charles, really comes in and adds another layer to consider. From his perspective, and aligning with what Moritz describes, there is simply no known internal biological process that turns ingested olive oil into these squishy, distinct green or tan stones that have a kind of solidified fat consistency.
How does digestion normally handle fat?
Our digestive system typically breaks down fats, like olive oil, into fatty acids and glycerol. These are then absorbed to the intestinal wall. It doesn't spontaneously create discrete, rubbery, multifaceted objects that resemble hardened cholesterol waxy buildup.
Okay. So what was Charles's story?
Well, Charles performed this flush procedure many times over a period of years. Initially, he was apparently quite skeptical. He was really struggling at the time with chronic fatigue, persistent digestive issues that nothing seemed to help, and severe rheumatoid arthritis, RA.
RA, that's serious.
Very serious. He was only 23 when he was diagnosed with RA, and his doctor had given him a grim prognosis that he would likely die by age 40 without high-dose pharmaceuticals. But these drugs, things like high-dose prednisone and methotrexate, barely helped him before his immune system seemed to overpower them anyway. He was on dangerously high levels, yet his immune system, the RA, still won, as he put it.
Wow. So he was in a bad way.
Extremely. He had intense gout-like pain in his joints, feet, hands, shoulders, even though his blood tests showed normal uric acid levels, so it wasn't typical gout. After he started doing these liver flushes, maybe after the first few, he reported that the intense joint pain and the burning sensation completely disappeared.
Completely.
That's his account. He also shared an incident where his left leg suddenly went numb, and then within 2 days, the other leg followed suit. He did his next scheduled flush, and he claims the numbness vanished entirely by the next day and never returned.
That's pretty dramatic.
It is. He discovered Moritz's book when he was 29, and that's when he started this journey. He mentioned other things helped him along the way, like taking systemic enzymes and working on regulating his nervous system, but he felt the most significant, game-changing improvement came specifically from doing this cleanse protocol repeatedly.
And what did he notice coming out during the flushes? Did he see the green globules?
Yes. During the first few flushes, he noticed small to large green globules being expelled, just as Moritz described. And after each cleanse, he reported feeling noticeably lighter, more flexible, and having significantly more energy. It wasn't subtle. It was a clear difference each time.
And his RA?
Today, he's 44, and he reports his blood work shows no signs of RA, not even mild inflammation markers.
From being told he'd die by 40, that's incredible.
It's a remarkable turnaround, according to his testimony. What really stood out to him, he said, was the progression over time. In the first few cleanses, which he did spaced about every 2 to 4 weeks, he expelled larger stones. Over time, as he continued the cleanses, the expelled stones got progressively smaller, and concurrently, his health improvements became more stable and lasting.
So bigger stones initially than smaller ones.
Exactly. His digestion normalized, his energy levels stabilized, and that feeling of being lighter, more youthful, became his new baseline, his new normal. He described it as feeling like he was shedding layers upon layers of accumulated material from inside his body. When the larger stones eventually stopped appearing in the flushes, his health remained consistently good and his energy stayed high. He even described it quite poetically as feeling like he's aging in reverse and actually feels younger each year now.
Wow. That testimony really highlights the deeply personal nature of these healing journeys, doesn't it? And the potentially profound impact these unconventional approaches can have for individuals who feel they've exhausted other options and are willing to explore them.
It really does.
It's a powerful account that brings these, frankly, quite out there theories into the realm of lived, tangible experience for at least one person.
Indeed, it challenges us, I think, to consider experiences that fall well outside conventional medical frameworks, and perhaps to recognize the profound power of the body to heal itself, given the right conditions, or at least given the removal of what these particular authors identify as core impediments, like stones or toxins. It encourages a perspective where the body isn't just this passive recipient of illness prone to breaking down, but potentially an active participant in its own recovery, always striving for balance if we can just get the obstacles out of the way. And this type of anecdotal evidence, while clearly not rigorous scientific proof in the clinical trial sense, is often what drives individuals to explore these alternative paths, especially when conventional medicine hasn't provided the answers or relief they were seeking.
That makes perfect sense. People are looking for solutions when the standard ones fail them.
Exactly.
So we've explored the fascinating and, as we said, often provocative ideas put forth by Andreas Moritz and Hulda Clark today. From the silent burden of liver gallstones impacting seemingly everything, to the pervasive threat of hidden parasites enabled by environmental pollutants. Their work, though distinct in its specific focus stones versus parasites pollutants, it really converges on a powerful overarching idea, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
That maybe many of our modern ailments, the chronic things people struggle with for years, can perhaps be traced back to this internal congestion and accumulated toxic burden. And that proactive self-cleansing, in whatever form that takes based on these models, might unlock profound healing potentials that are already within the body, just waiting to be accessed.
Well summarized. We've seen how they both advocate for a really meticulous, almost forensic approach to health, emphasizing not just these dramatic internal cleanses, but also fundamental lifestyle changes like dental cleanups, radical dietary shifts, careful scrutiny of everyday body products, and thorough environmental detoxification of the home. And the personal testimony shared today from Charles provides a compelling, lived example of the potential for significant transformation when these unconventional paths are explored with diligence, persistence, and perhaps an open mind.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener, taking all this in? These ideas, they really challenge us to look beyond just managing symptoms, don't they? To potentially look for deeper root causes and maybe to question the true sources of various health challenges we might face or see others facing. What if the keys to some of our long-standing health mysteries lie not just in prescription pads or the next medical breakthrough, but perhaps in deeply understanding our own internal environment, our liver function, our toxic load, our parasitic burden, according to these authors, and also understanding the external world we inhabit and how it impacts us. And then, based on that understanding, taking proactive steps to cleanse and restore that delicate internal balance. This immediately begs a really important question for everyone listening. In a world absolutely flooded with information and often very conflicting health advice, how do you discern what resonates with your own personal health journey? How do you figure out which path might be right for you and what steps you might be willing to take to achieve your own regenesis of health?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? Personal discernment and informed choice.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration today on the Regenesis Health Podcast, Unconventional Paths to Wellness and Root Cause Healing. Until next time, stay curious, keep asking questions, and keep seeking your own unique paths to wellness.